Welcome to the Rodeo Wagon Podcast, brought to you by the Western Edge app and produced by Cosmic Cowboys Productions. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you go and follow our great partners over at Sombrero Brands, Cowboys Finest Cowboy Hats, Bluegrass Engravings, JM Ranch Snap Racks, and Ranch Life. All right, heck yeah. Guys, everybody listening, I've been waiting to do this podcast for a little while. This is Paul Lloyd. He's a trainer for ChampionLiving. And I need to get Doug on sometime too. I've done Logan a couple times, so be kind of nice to get a little bit of different angle into this, especially because you do the bull riding. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. Yeah, hopefully it's not too much of an echo of what Logan said previously, but yeah, like you said, we all got our own perspectives and own expertise and within the space. So
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think me and Logan have really, we've talked about bull riding a little bit, but we haven't, just got into the bull riding, in depths anyway. So what's been that process like for you? Because like one of the things that I've really noticed within the bull riding world, because I came from outside the sport, so I was playing baseball and all of these other sports coming into bull riding. And one of the biggest things I noticed is language and the lack thereof of, specific language in identifying form and all of that kind of stuff. I'm curious on your thoughts when it comes to so much of the language. Like people will be fighting each other and like, dude, they're saying the same thing. Like they're saying the exact same thing. Or
that
some guys overemphasize maybe, but
yeah, that's actually a really, really good point. And we're currently taking steps forward to start to combat that. Because I've noticed the exact same thing. Like you listen to one guy say something, you listen to another guy say something. It's like, okay, well, if we boil both of those down, I think you're saying the exact same thing, but you're just explaining it in a different way, which is valuable. Like people learn through different cues. We use the same thing with exercise. Like, I might try to explain it one way to somebody and they might get it. And then this person standing right next to them is like, wait a second, like I still don't quite understand. And then so you kind of have to reframe it. And so like being able to reframe things for different folks is very valuable as a coach. And I think like when we talk about bull riding and like maybe people teaching bull riding or coaching bull riding, sometimes they will pigeonhole like a certain cue or a certain aspect of the language that they're using, and one person might get it, one person might not, and so we're actually, like I said, currently taking steps forward. I just I had a long conversation with Joe Frost the other day, just like maybe 3 days ago, and he's like let's like try to get together and figure out like how can we make this to where we can all be on the same page? You know what I mean? Like everybody's teaching the same way, and maybe we do use different language, but like at the end of the day, like if we boil it down, we're teaching the same thing. And so I think that's going to be really big. We're gonna try and do that here within the next few months and try and take steps forward on that. And I think that can really help move the sport forward, because you can ask 10 different world champions what made them world champions, and they're probably all going to say something different, or they might tell you something that like you weren't expecting. You're like, oh, well, like I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more tactical that I can take away and apply in my own career. And so what we're really wanting to do is find what is replicable. Like what are the things, what are the qualities of elite rodeo athletes, or especially elite bull riders in this instance? How can we replicate that and then share that information with everybody so that we can further create more elite bull riders? And at the end of the day, like my whole mission behind that and the reason behind that is we're getting outpaced by the stock. Like, I mean, a generation of bulls turns around every 3 years. They can breed and improve the genetics every 3 years. We can't do that with guys. It takes 18 years for you to mature into an adult to where you can even professionally rodeo. And and we're not breeding for rodeo athletes. We're not selective breeding. So we're already behind the eight ball, and we've got to do something to help us stay on pace with the animal athletes.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to think too, with bulls, they just throw away. If it's not working, then
Hmm.
throw it away. There's not a communication there. Like they're the training program for this stock, but it's not a communication. And I think that's the biggest part about developing and skill development within bull riders.
Hmm.
It's one reason why, like the better I've gotten and the more advanced I feel like my training's gotten in bull riding, the less comfortable I've been even teaching and really trying to communicate with people,
Yep.
because like it would take so much of my time to develop proper communication. Like that's a
Hmm.
job in and of itself. Like once you understand some of this, now you have to communicate it, because some of this stuff, like you'll see two videos or three videos on a drop barrel, for instance, with three different guys doing three different things, and technically all three of them could be right at a specific time on a specific type of bull, you know,
Hmm.
depending on movement, on, and that's why you see guys like Brazilians, and you see traditional American riding, you see traditional Brazilian riding, and there's foundational things that are the same there, but there's also things that are unique. And it's the reason certain bulls fit certain guys and certain bulls don't.
Hmm.
So you get into specifics though,
Yep.
For me, like I started going to Gary LaFuse when I started, and getting to the front end and getting really up on my legs. Just it was so natural to me, but I really struggled on bulls that hit hard and bulls
Hmm.
that came back underneath themselves, because I overemphasized my entire career from the beginning. So whereas a
Yep.
lot of guys, they were sitting on their butt, and then that overemphasis actually benefited them. It helped them even out. For me, I started from scratch, and I was so gung ho on it that I just got left out, hung over the shoulders all the time.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
developing different stuff like that. I guess it's, as I've gotten and grown, it's like, okay, well, how do you communicate this to somebody that's coming up and learning? Because you really need to understand that person. But I have one
Yeah. Yeah.
question for you. I have one
Go ahead.
question. So I think one benefit that you guys have, especially on the fitness side, is utilizing muscle groups to help alleviate some of that. One
Hmm.
example is like pulling. So the difference between prying on your rope, pulling on your rope, well, you can get down to the anatomy of what your body's actually doing in those movements. And that can
Hmm.
kind of clear up. Do you feel like that helps clear up a little bit
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
of the
100%. The lens that I see bull riding through now is way different than what I did when I was actually riding. Things that seem in a simplest way to put it is like I have clarity on a lot of it. I can see it through it. Like I don't have the fog of like competition where I'm trying to constantly fix myself because I don't have to fix myself anymore. Now I can look at it through an objective lens. I'm detached from the outcome, and I can look and see, maybe watch videos of guys and be like, okay, this happened here. This is where I think the breakdown is, and this is what we need to work on. Whereas with myself, I would watch things and I would try to pick out the good and try to pick out the bad, but like try and focus on the good so that I don't like get into a bad mental headspace. And so like there's like just so much confusion when you're in the heat of competition. Whereas now I don't have that I don't have that barrier anymore. And so a couple of the things that you did say that I want to kind of circle back to is the muscle group thing. First of all, I guess is I see bull riding now through a lens that I don't know that there's anybody else that does in the same way that I do, just because of my understanding of the human body and things. And that's really an important thing because you were talking about, lifting and prying and you want to when you're riding, you want to do what works, but like now I can kind of break it down and take larger sample sizes of the different videos because guys send me videos on Instagram and stuff all the time, and so I can look at all these different videos of different calibers of riders and be like, kind of break down exactly what's happening. And I also understand, the muscles that are involved and the way that the human body actually has to interact with the bull. And so it's not so much that I'm focusing on like, you know, what's going right or wrong. It's like this is what works consistently, like on the majority of bulls. But, to your point earlier, like, if a bull like hits hard and sucks back, like that's a different type of bull. Like you have to ride that one a little bit different. So yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it. And like you said that there's a lot of the bulls are move different, but I'm currently trying to find kind of what to my point earlier, like the replicable aspects of it, like what works on most bulls, like like try to just figure all that out. And I've got all over my desk, I've got sticky notes and scratch papers and little sketches and drawings and stuff all over the place, and notes of what muscles be activating here, and you know the counter of each of those. And so it's a big mess right now in my head. But I think we're getting a little bit closer to being able to explain it in a way that most people are going to be able to understand and then take into their own skill development and hopefully move forward.
And there's, when you get into that, there's the personal touch of, the training, which is so vital, having somebody, but we'll get to that later, the reasons why it's actually necessary to have somebody you're interacting with.
Hmm.
But on the other side, every other sport, you look at baseball, you look at any other sport, and you see varieties of form and varieties
Hmm.
of angles, that are happening. But there's still fundamental processes that has to take place.
Hmm.
All of these guys get to, a batter. I think I was talking to Vinny, and there's like 5 points, where every great hitter gets to, right?
Hmm.
How they get to those points is often, from the visual, it looks so different.
Hmm.
So, to your point, there has to be there. But I think too, one of the downsides that I've seen so much is, and we use tools, and I think it's great, like Coach's Eye and stuff, but we're still dealing with things that are broadly concepts.
Hmm.
You know, being able to really get into, like you said, the anatomy and stuff like that, you really can start to break these things down beyond just traditional concepts that have been passed down from generation to generation. And they may even be accurate, and they are a lot of times, but
Hmm.
they lack maybe the depths to really help a guy be able to hone in on that, specifically in the training side of things, where it's like these are movements, and we need to develop these movements, we need to develop these muscles, and how those muscles interact with movements. uh,
Hmm.
I think functional movement is different than just going straight powerlifting, where it's about
Hmm.
the most weight you can lift. Although that ties in there too. That's different than a sport like we're in. You know.
Yeah. So I'll share one of the concepts that I'm hoping to move towards. And like you said, like some of it's like theory and it's broad, but like ultimately, like I want to get to the point where like certain things are law. Like we know the law of like bull riding. Like these things have to happen or nothing else matters. So like to your point, like say for a batter, for instance, like everybody's gonna have their own style. Their swing might look a little bit different, but there's certain things that are law that have to happen in order for the physics for the bat to swing, make contact with the ball, and the ball to move in a certain trajectory. So like, traditionally we would think of most field sports, or team sports, whereas like we look at the athlete and we work from the ground up because they're making contact with the ground and the bottom of their feet. So we look there first, and then we try to build them from the ground up. With bull riding, we're making contact with the bottom of our pelvis. Like that's the main contact point. And so we have to almost work from the middle outwards. And so that has led me to kind of think like, one of the things that a lot of guys, especially young guys, will bring their problem to me and say, hey, I need help with my free arm, or I keep losing my feet. And I think those things fall more into style. Like your riding style will depict how you carry your free arm, how you hold your feet. Like those things I don't think are the nuts and bolts. Like they're not the things that we need to focus on the most, but something that we do need to focus on. Where's our main contact point? Directly underneath our pelvis. So our hips. So everything needs to, if nothing's going, or if it's not going right at the hips, who cares about your free arm? Because it wasn't going to work anyway. Um, and so that's kind of where I'm at now, and we're working on I want to take kind of what I want to do is to organize all my scratch notes like I was talking about earlier, and then bring it to somebody that does understand biomechanics even, you know, further than I do, somebody that's, you know, worked with a variety of different field sport athletes, and then try to explain my theory to them, and if that makes sense, and like, you know, make sure that I'm on par with like how the human body actually does, you know, work and stuff. And I'm not, you know, just taking different bits and pieces and cherry picking and trying to inject my own biases into it, but like actually figure out like what's real. And then um and then beyond that, then take it to, you know, more elite level bull riders and bull riding coaches and say like, hey, like, does this make sense to you? Like, are we on, does this feel like we're on the right track? And then I think that can help bring us closer to having that one unified language of how to teach bull riding.
Man, it's exciting that you're doing that because it's been missing for so long. And then, like you said, even the humility there to find someone who's maybe well versed in biomechanics. They may know nothing about bull riding, but they
Mhm.
understand human anatomy and how all of this stuff is connected, how these movements work, how they work within a variety of different sports like that. I think that's so valuable because we've never gotten there with this sport
Mhm.
at all. It's nobody's
No.
ever done this. I mean, back in the day, it's just try harder. Well, you
Yeah.
look off or
Get a
you
hold of your feet and lift on your rope.
you should have
It's like, okay, what does that
gone
do
on
for
tighter.
me? Yeah. Don't quit till your head hits the ground. It's like, yeah, well, that's valuable, but there's got to be more to it than that.
And they're definitely doing it with bulls. I mean, these bulls, they're
Hmm.
dialed in on genetics and the amount of rank bulls out there today is just wild. I mean, you'll go to oh heck, I was listening this morning. I believe it was yeah, was it today's episode with the Champion Living that was launched, and they talked about uh Cord McCoy's bull. Riding solo at a
Hmm.
$1,000 added pro
Yep.
rodeo. And
Yep.
but you go, I've been to bulls that gone to the world finals at a little MRCA,
Hmm.
in Missouri, So I mean you have this stock that's just getting so good, and it's getting so broad. Like there's so many of them out there.
Hmm.
The challenge, for you guys, and it really should be for this younger generation, is to be able to prepare for that because it's no
Absolutely.
longer just this thing where it's like, oh, I just want to go out here and have fun. Well, you can just go out there and have fun. And I'm not against, guys working during the week and then just getting on just because they want to do it on the weekends. But like, I think it's important to understand what you're getting on and being prepared a little bit for that. And if you are going to be getting on some of these bulls, man, it's super important. Just
Hmm.
physically, mentally, like you're not going to enjoy going out and getting on a bull that, you should be 88 on, but you've never stayed on for 8 seconds before. That's not gonna
Yeah.
be enjoyable, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
you also have to prepare those kids to be able to handle those bulls. And with, the team theory than what we're seeing now, where they're gonna start pushing, they do it in baseball, they're gonna start although baseball's actually better. I will say this, baseball's better. Guys don't make the major leagues until they're like 24
Hmm.
through the skill development process. But in general, for the marketing side and everything, they want young guys coming up and being on these teams. And that's great, but there's also the other side where it's like, how many of these kids have matured physically? Like, were
Right.
they training when they were 14 and then they were able to physically mature their bodies to be able to handle that when they got really physically mature at 18, 19 years old? Or are they just now going to start training when they're 18 and now they're going and getting on, really ranked bulls consistently? What's
Yeah.
your thoughts on that and kind of where you guys are at in that process of reaching
Hmm.
kids?
Well, I think the easiest way to explain that would be like, let's take a play out of the buck and bull playbook. So how does a buck and bull become a world class bucking bull? They start out as a 1-year-old with a dummy, and they buck for maybe 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then they trigger the dummy to come off when they see that the bull has done something that is right. So what they're doing from very early age with a bull is they're building their confidence. And so they're trying to build a bull's confidence. They're starting them at a level that is going to help them feel better about their performance. And So if we start there, what does a bull rider need to do then? They need to start at a level that's going to help them feel better about their performance. They don't need to go get on that 88 point bull. They need to start on a steer, on a jump kicker, on, maybe a cow. Like, I don't care. Like, you have to get comfortable with making the whistle, just like a bull has to get comfortable with doing something that's going to prevent you from making the whistle. And then so then we move up. You move up in the age group. A bull's, as he's a 2-year-old, he's still getting bucked as a dummy. He's still getting bucked for maybe 4 to 6 seconds, like until the contractor is pleased with his performance and they release the dummy. So they're continually building the bull's confidence all the way up until they're 3 years old, until they get their first rider trip. And then even then, like, by the time they get their first rider trip, they're probably going to get somebody that's not gonna stay on them for 8 seconds. They're getting some young kid down the road that just wants to ride bulls, um, and that's also a problem as well from a bull rider development standpoint. Like, you need to test yourself every now and then, but you need to be ready when you do test yourself. You can't just come off the couch for 6 months and then go get on an ABBI Derby bull. And so that's the performance and the skill development aspect of it. The other aspect of how a buck and bull is trained is they're on a regimented nutrition program. So they're getting the best feed and they're getting fed properly and they're getting the right amount of calories that they need. They're not getting too much. They're not getting too little. They're getting well taken care of. And then they're getting exercise. So, everybody's exercise program might look a little bit different, but a bull is exercising to help build the muscles that he needs to have that's going to help him buck well. Up until the last couple of years, like, bull riders weren't doing that, or at least not very much, not very often. And so, we look at what these bulls have been doing for a long time, and they've been building their confidence with their skill development. They've been on regimented nutrition programs, and they've been exercising, and they have the advantage of selective breeding for good genetics. So, I mean, as from a rider standpoint, like, you're behind the 8 ball. Like, there's no way that you can keep up with that. The things that you can control are your skill development, just like the buck and bulls. You can control your nutrition. You can control your exercise regimen. So those are the 3 things that I would say, like, any rider needs to be focusing on, is because those are the things that you can control. There's so much in rodeo that is out of our hands. You can't control the weather. You can't control the draw. You can't control the arena conditions. You can't control the judges, but you can take care of your skill development. You can take care of your body. You can take care of your equipment. And those are the things that you need to be focusing on.
Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about my favorite cowboy hat brand, Sombrero Brands. As a professional bull rider, I know how important it is to have a hat that not only looks good, but can withstand the toughest rides out there. And that's exactly what Sombrero Brands delivers. Their hats are custom fitted and shaped to perfection, with a level of attention to detail that's hard to find these days. But what really sets Sombrero Brands apart is the fact that they're a family-owned and operated business. Mark and Kendall Holler, the owners, and their daughter Sarah, who's only 13 but already a hat-making prodigy, are all passionate about their craft. They know what it takes to make a cowboy hat that can stand up to anything the rodeo circuit can throw at it. And get this, the founder's grandfather, Polly Holler, was born and raised at South Camp on the 4-6's ranch. These folks have got cowboy blood running through their veins, and it shows in every hat they make. That's why I'm proud to have Sombrero Brands as a major sponsor for my podcast, the Rodeo Wagon Podcast. So if you're in the market for a hat that's tough enough to handle anything the rodeo throws at it, give Sombrero Brands a try. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. What's up, everybody? I'm thrilled to announce a fantastic partnership between the Rodeo Wagon Podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Rodeo Life isn't just a coffee brand. It's a veteran-owned business that epitomizes the principles of hard work, dedication, and perseverance in all their products. As an avid consumer of Rodeo Life coffee, I am proud to align myself with a company that mirrors my values and resonates with our audience. Supporting this veteran-owned business is not only a testament to our shared ethos, but also a way to give back to those who have served our country. This partnership promises exciting content, collaborations, and surprises for all our listeners and the rodeo community. You can anticipate special episodes featuring the Rodeo Life experts and even a chance to win some Rodeo Life merchandise. We look forward to this journey with Rodeo Life and the enriching experience it will bring our audience. Join us as we venture into this partnership, fueled by a passion for rodeo and a great cup of Rodeo Life coffee. Stay tuned for more exciting updates and the amazing things to come from the Rodeo Wagon podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Make sure you go to rodeolifeofficial.com and check out all their sweet merch. Are you searching for that perfect statement? Look no further than Bluegrass Engraving, where creativity meets craftsmanship. Their specialty lies in creating custom buckles and dip cans, but that's not all. They redefine elegance with an exquisite line of jewelry, and for those who appreciate a little flair, check out their engraved guns collection. At Bluegrass Engraving, they don't just create products, they craft experiences. Visit Bluegrass Engraving today and let them turn your visions into engraved realities. Bluegrass Engraving, where artistry meets authenticity. And, even like on the training side, the nutrition side's a big deal. We'll get to that too. But like the training side, it's not, like when I first got into it and, I'd always been training and stuff, but when I was, younger, in my early 20s, like I pushed, and I didn't consider training as recovery. I didn't
Hmm.
consider the importance of mobility. I didn't consider, if at one point I was pushing myself 8 to 12 hours a day physically, and that's all I did was just push. And your body breaks down after
Hmm.
so long of doing that. And like not considering like tightness, like, like you doing all that time, it's just every part of your body is just getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And so on the bull riding thing side, I think when, a lot, I don't know, do you see that a lot where a lot of guys are maybe all about training, but it's more focused on, the workouts, not the mobility workouts or, the proper stretching and when to, but really just kind of the weights and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yes. So more so, just training inappropriately in general. Not training in a way that is specific to the sport or the things the qualities that they're wanting to improve. They'll have in their mind the things that they want to get better at, and then their training doesn't reflect what they want to get better at. And we can look at the Bucking Bulls again as far as like how when they're going to compete and like how their body's feeling. If a bull's got a sore hock, the guy's not going to buck him. Like they're going to keep him off the road for a little bit. If he's got a sore back, they're going to get him into the chiropractor, or they're going to get some electromagnetic pulse on him. Like they're going to take care of the bull's bodies with any little pain, sore, or inconvenience. And that's not something that we see with guys yet. We keep pushing we push the limits of what we're able to handle and withstand. And sometimes, like especially in rodeo, PBR is a little bit better with the schedule at least. But especially in rodeo, like you almost have to. Like it forces you to play with the pain. And there's a time to play with the pain, and there's a time to take time off and rest and focus on fixing where your body's breaking down. But to get back to the original point of like training inappropriately, absolutely. And the biggest one I see, and I'll call it out right now. And if you're a bull rider listening to this, your feelings are going to get hurt. The biggest one I see is guys that go for runs every single day, like 3-4 miles a day, and like that's the end of their quote unquote training. Now, is that a bad thing in and of itself? No. Like if you enjoy going for runs, go for a run. Like if you like doing that, if it makes you feel better, absolutely go do it. But you need to also train for your sport and the specificity of your sport. And so the energy system that we use in bull riding is primarily the creatine phosphagen systems, which is lasts from 0 to 12 seconds. So we're just using stored creatine that's within our muscles. And when you go for a run for 3-4 miles, you're training your aerobic system. And it's great to have higher aerobic capacity. It's good for recovery. It's good for a ton of other things. Um, but it's not helping you get any better at expressing short-term power within your creatine phosphate system.
And
And
that's
so like that,
down to intensity a lot of times.
exactly. So bull riding is 100% intensity for a short duration. Going for a long distance run is low intensity for a long duration. It's the exact opposite of what you want to actually train for. Um, so I think that's one of the biggest things that I see as far as inappropriate training. And like I said, it's not bad to do that thing. You just also have to train short or high intensity, short duration to help build your capacity for that short, quick burst, explosive power.
I think too, just in general, this isn't always the case, but for the most part, everybody tends to, the natural thing is to find what's easiest, but that's going to work, right? And
Hmm.
so running tends to be, it's, I think it's easier. Look, I could go run 26 miles and every once in a while I would do that, right?
Hmm.
Not for any physical gain because it's really not great to do that, but just the mental side of it, that's hard,
Yeah,
right? It's hard
absolutely.
to not be an endurance athlete and go run a marathon.
Hmm.
Um, but running in and of itself is much easier than expressing, like you said, 100% intensity for
Hmm.
duration of time,
Hmm.
especially when you take that and you know do X amount of sets with it, to where it's not like, oh, I'm just doing this once. I'm doing this once. I'm taking a break, a long enough break to where my body can now redo it at 100% again, and then do
Hmm.
it again. And then the more you do it again, that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. And I've learned that recently. I've started competing in Olympic weightlifting, and it surprised me how well it parallels with bull riding. Like it's very high on form and technique. Like it's chasing perfection but never achieving it. You're under insane loads. Like you're throwing up huge weights for one repetition. And so it's short burst energy, all out effort as hard as you possibly can, and then resting and then trying to replicate that same intensity at the end of your restoration. um uh Also, like that's kind of just helped me conceptualize a lot of the form stuff too, like as far as like how our center of gravity is affected by different positions of our body. And so like the my position around the barbell when I'm doing Olympic lifting is pretty dang similar to the position that you are centered around your bull rope, and like how you need to maintain your center of gravity. So it's taught me a lot, but you're 100% correct on on that. It's insanely hard and really humiliating to try to put out that amount of effort, because sometimes it goes really well and other times you get an instant feedback of how poor your recovery was the night before, or your mental state is in and during that training session. Sometimes it goes really great and you're like, wow, I'm on top of the world, like I can't believe I just lift that much weight. And the next day or the next week you can't even budge that weight again, because maybe recovery was subpar, and or maybe like you just weren't there mentally that day. And so like I said, the parallels between the Olympic lifting and bull riding have uh definitely surprised me, and I think it's definitely made me better be able to make connections between like how we should be training for rodeo.
That's funny you say that. Like, there's a couple points there. Like, so one thing just in weightlifting, you say that. So for instance, for like, again, mobility and stuff, like
Hmm.
if you can't get your hips right, then
Yep.
doing a deadlift, with a lot of weight, doing a traditional deadlift, you probably don't even want to do that. You're at a big risk.
Hmm.
You're better off going to sumo, than you are not being able to keep that form. But then you even look at like in the squat rack, just doing a traditional squat in a powerlifting setting. Um, like it's max effort, but within a structure, like, and it's a
Hmm.
law, like you have a framework that you have to maintain there. And
Hmm.
if you put in that effort and your form's off, then like not only will you not be able to lift as much weight, but then you're going to be exposed to a lot of injuries and stuff.
Hmm.
The translation of that in bull riding, which is interesting, is all of that conceptually is correct. You still have to be within that same framework, but everything's moving. So,
Hmm.
like, all of that happens within, like, there's times where I'll be on a bull where I feel out of control because I'm out of shape. Like, the weight's
Hmm.
not properly going down my legs, my posterior chain's not activating the right way. And you may ride one, and then there's other times where it's just like everything's running through your body perfectly, and it's just like the easiest thing in the world, and you have total control. If you would have
Yep.
went and tried to push me off of that bull, you wouldn't have been able to, because everything was engaged.
Hmm.
the right way. And that's fascinating on the complexities maybe that you'll probably start to develop as you kind of get into some of that core stuff is like
Hmm.
what that looks like in the bull riding world in movement.
Hmm. Yeah, and so like one of the to kind of just stay on this topic, the like with Olympic lifting, like the bar path kind of dictates, the success or not of the lift. So like you have to have you need to be moving about like around the bar or keeping your weight centered in a way to the so that the bar path is relatively straight. And if you don't have the prerequisite mobility to keep that bar path straight, you're not going to be able to move as much weight. Whereas if you went back and you focus on your mobility and you fix your mobility, the weight that you're able to move would immediately increase just because you can keep the bar path straight. And it's the same thing with bull riding. Like if you're lacking mobility in certain areas, you're immediately going to see greater success if you focus on improving your mobility just because you're able to keep your center of gravity where it needs to be. And then to your point of like, the easy that feeling of it just being easy. Like, when you're in the middle of one and you're tapped off and it doesn't feel like, somebody could come up and try and knock you off and it's not going to bother you. That's kind of the same thing with the Olympic weightlifting is like, the best lifts that you'll ever have, the heaviest ones, like are usually the easiest because you're doing everything correctly. And it's the same thing with bull riding. Like if you're doing everything correctly, it should be fairly easy, or it should feel easy if your skill development's dialed in and your fitness is up to par.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing too to kind of maybe get a little deeper into that. It's like the feel aspect of some of this
Hmm.
and like bull riding because so much of it is a feel. So you develop things and then you feel it, and then sometimes you feel things and then you develop things, and they're kind of the ebb and flow. And it really should work more where you can kind of prepare your body. And that's one thing that you guys are doing that I think it's really going to benefit a lot of guys is uh, instead of just going through that whole entire system where back in the day where it's like once you get that feeling, now you kind of know how to recreate it and you start doing that. But it was just getting on a lot of bulls with how you did
Hmm.
it. You had to find that feeling by just getting on a bunch of bulls. Where now you can kind of start developing guys physically to prepare them for finding that feeling, that sweet spot to where it's like you've done this on the barrel. Your body has been trained to find that spot, and then, being able to maintain that as well. I
Yeah.
think is a big thing. So what's your thoughts on the feel side and how do you guys as like trainers, uh, deal with guys and the feelings? And do you do that? Do you talk to guys, because you guys are talking to high level guys where, they're super feel guys, like
Hmm.
golf. There's guys that are very technical. There's guys that are just completely feel, and there's guys on both sides of it that are at the very top. So it's not like
Yep.
one way is wrong or right, and both of them have both if you get to the high level.
Hmm.
So I didn't know if that was something that you guys talk about much. It's like this is kind of what I'm feeling, and then getting that feedback. Okay, well when I do this, I feel this, or anything like that.
Yeah, so that's one that I don't know yet. Um, and I watch a lot of film on all guys from all eras. I watched the top guys from today and the top guys from yesterday and the top guys from as far back as this video will let me find. And I spent some time watching a lot of Lane Frost videos in like super slow mo a few couple weeks ago, and one thing that I noticed was that like the guys that ride really well today, and even in Lane's day, like he didn't ride like anybody else. Like I couldn't compare him hardly to anybody else, but he still got the job done. And so like it's hard to like kind of break that down as to like, okay, and it goes back to the things it's like where I'm trying to find like what is the replicable aspects of bull riding because Lane didn't quite ride like anybody else, and there's very few guys I can point to today that even look similar to him, and but yet he was still very successful. And so I think that would fall into that category of like that feel aspect or just understanding bulls and how to move your body in a way that is matching their moves. But yeah, okay, so that's kind of generic. 100% sure what part of what I'm thinking in the lens that I'm, trying to see the whole picture through.
Yeah. Man, it takes so much time. What you're doing is not something that happens overnight. So,
No.
man, from just for the writers, thank you for going through that process because nobody's really gone through this process yet. And you also
Hmm.
get into another complexity, it's ropes, equipment, equipment
Hmm.
change. There's differences in equipment from back then to today. There's differences in equipment today. There's hardly anybody that's using the same equipment. And you can say Brazilian rope, American rope. It's much deeper than that.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, the quality of ropes is different. The way that they're built, I think, is a lot different. Cords in a handle, no cord in a handle, half lace, no lace. It's just kind of all over the place as far as the developments that we've been that, not me personally, but like just as an industry, we've been making towards um getting higher quality equipment. So anything that's going to give us that edge that we obviously, like we outlined earlier, do not have when it comes to trying to stay on a bull. The cards are stacked against us in every single way, and so yeah, there's big differences there, and how ropes ride and how ropes feel, and how they even feel just in your palm, like how that I think that can play a big part um in in a guy's riding is just how much can he close his hand, how can he squeeze on it, as if he's got a really skinny tail and a really skinny handle, like he's going to be able to fully close his hand, but like is that the best for his grip or is it not? Like there's a lot of nuance there too.
yeah, for sure. And how much grip should we be using?
Hmm.
Like what is that in squeezing versus, not, and then you get into rosin and, there's a lot of different things like that that you just don't realize. Like, just how strong your grip is, like that changes things. That changes how
Hmm.
much your body's engaging, your muscles going up into your forearms, to your bicep, to your shoulders, right? It,
Hmm.
all of these things are connected. So it's fascinating how kind of deep some of that gets.
Yeah.
And to be honest, uh, you know, like that's just a lot of that. It's too much for one guy to go through if he's riding, unless that's
Oh,
just
for
what he
sure.
does. Unless he did, that's just what his hobby is during the week. Because you
Hmm.
you can do that, but for me, like earlier on in my career, I spent tons of time on stuff like that, and then as I developed, I realized I'm better off getting on the barrel and doing these things other than the intellectual aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's so important to me because there was nothing out there. So when I
mhm.
was 2022, like you guys didn't come around to it, was it 2017? Is that correct?
Maybe 19,
19?
19 or 20,
Okay,
like
19.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
somewhere in there.
Okay, so
19.
somewhere in there. But so you have all of that. Like for most of my career, like I was trying to figure out this bull riding thing, whereas like I come in from like baseball and stuff like
Hmm.
that. It's like it's data driven. It's all of this stuff is down pat.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah, you,
there's
you've got statistical analysts like that,
yeah,
that's their only
that's
job
a
is they
real
just
job.
analyze stats. Yeah. We've got Slade Long. Poor Slade Long is our is
Yeah.
our lone man on the stats side.
Yeah, yeah, no joke. That's funny. And with the team stuff, I think that, I think hopefully that'll help as well. And I know you guys have I just watched a video the other day of you guys doing something with one of the teams.
Hmm.
I know you guys have your what's it called? It's not a academy. The
Optimal Performance Academy or
uh yeah, the you I don't know if you have done it for bull riders yet, have you?
we're doing one in May.
OPA. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yep,
what it is.
OPA at
Yeah.
the end of May.
I just
Yep.
hear OPA, so yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Correct. Yeah. So May's your first one. Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
I think that kind of stuff, moving forwards, especially with its team concept, will just continue to develop and there'll be a
Hmm.
need for it, especially if these teams, if they really do start getting past this whole marketing phase they're in, which is almost everything right now is marketing. There's
Yep.
not a whole lot of depth to it.
Hmm.
At the very surface, when you really get down deep enough, it's the same.
Yep.
Nothing really changed other than a guy's telling you what bull to get on now.
Hmm.
But moving forwards, as they get past this marketing hype, you know, as it gains a root and there becomes more money in it, not just for the athletes, when there becomes more money in it for the owners,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden managers start getting held accountable, coaches, that's another thing they don't talk about. Every other sport, if you don't put a winning team together, you're fired. You don't
Hmm.
get a job. I'm a huge fan of the Cardinals, Colts. We went through coaches.
Hmm.
You know, like so. But as that happens, what begins to happen is you start seeing all of this development starting to taking place because there's
Yep.
more money. But those people, they start investing more in their athletes to make sure that the athletes are getting every tool that they need. For instance, in baseball, if you're going to spend $100 million on a guy, you better believe that you're going to make sure that he has access to everything he needs to be able to physically go out there and perform the
Hmm.
right way, you know? So I'm excited about what that could look like in the future, you know?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, like the money has to be there first.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah,
can't
it
we can't
does.
just fabricate it, out of thin air. And that's kind of, where we're at in this process is like, there's not a lot of money in what we do necessarily.
No, yeah,
Like
sure.
not yet anyway. And so it's not like we're doing like we do what we do to try and get rich by any way, shape, or form. Like it's strictly for the love of the game. And, we've been lucky enough to make enough money to support ourselves and our families and like, actually make a living. But and that allows us to dive into the things like you were talking about earlier that you didn't have time to. Like say I'm 30 years old. I've rode bulls for uh, I guess between like junior rodeo and big bulls, it was almost 20 or 18, 17, 18 years. Um, and then, the last 4 years been diving into the strength and conditioning side. Um, and I watch film for at least hours a day, like every day, and I still don't quite have all of the answers yet. And so like this has been 20 years in development just for me, just in my life. Like I've been trying to get to this point for 20 years it's taken me. And so that the if in a few years, we will have the ability to relay all of the needs of a bull rider when he's early on in his career. And that's what we're trying to do right now with the Optimal Performance Academy, at least give the information that we do have. And I think we have really good information. We've got a really good system down. Our first one was in fall of 2022 with bareback and saddle bronc riders, and it was almost like, I mean, we developed it for over a year before we actually held our first one, weekly meetings and creating the curriculum and everything. And then when we launched the first one, it was almost like we were just kind of crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. And but it worked. Like we had guys that were successful the day after they left. Like they earned their investment back from the school literally the next day, and not just one, like multiple of them. And so we're like, whoa, okay, we're on to something. And we've been able to repeat that now for 4 times. And so I'm really excited to bring this into bull riding here in a couple months. I think it's going to be huge. We've got a great list of students that are going to be there. And we're focusing on we want guys, we want athletes that are on the verge. Like it's not their first bull. It's not their, they haven't been, they're not getting their feet wet still. Like they need to be on at least 50 to 100 bulls. They need to be kind of know the ropes a little bit. But they just need some fine tuning. And then they need to learn the business aspect of what it takes to be a rodeo athlete. And then we deliver the package and we'll see it. We'll have the success stories here in a few years or here in a few months. Like I said, I'm confident now because we've been able to replicate it through this process that we built. And we'll have guys, that week they'll go to a bull riding and they'll be they'll win first for maybe the first time, or they'll win the biggest check of their life. Maybe and maybe not even that. Maybe it's smaller than that, but like they're gonna be able to leave there and be confident that they now have the tools that they need to make it in rodeo.
And you guys, and humbly talk about where you guys are going, but you guys have a great foundation already in what you're already doing. With, you know, the clientele that you're getting and Logan's getting and Doug. There's another trainer, isn't there? Is it four of you?
There's a total of 9 of us
Nine of
actually
them.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a few
Yeah.
females too, right?
Yeah. So there's several of us that, or there's several, we have several coaches that are kind of like they're, what we'd consider like part-time. They have other jobs and stuff, and they're doing other things, and then they're training on the side and trying to get their foot in the door. But there's 5 of us that just train rodeo athletes full time. Yes.
So it's you, Doug, Logan. I can see his face. I can't.
Tyler.
Tyler, that's who I was thinking.
And then Meg Epperson, or Meg Walker is our barrel racing
Okay.
extraordinaire, so to speak.
Yeah. And you guys, I mean, you're thinking, you have five people there that are well versed in all of this. And so I'm sure you guys talk all the time on
Hmm.
things that you're doing and as you're engaging. So what you guys have built is already great. I mean, it is exciting to see where you can go in the future. I think the OPAs are huge. I really do
Hmm.
believe that's a big deal. There's not a ton of schools out there. Not a ton of schools out there where you could just send your kid to or send
Hmm.
somebody to and you could just trust that the information they're getting is correct information.
Hmm.
That's a challenge in and of itself. There's a lot of people that ask me around here like, hey, my kid wants to get on bulls, where should I go? And I'm like, I don't know anybody right around here.
Hmm.
You're gonna have to travel a little bit before I could tell you, somebody that I would be confident being like, well, you could put my name on the back of, if
Yep.
I tell you that, then, like my name's attached to it type of a deal. And so, but I think that if you guys continue to develop that and hopefully, down the road, have more of them. And I think that's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, we definitely we want to get this OPA format really dialed in. And like I said, we have really good um m- social proof so far, just with the athletes that we've been able to they come in at a certain level and they leave a step above or where they came from. And I think once we have this really, nailed down, like it would be great to venture into more of like beginner type schools. Like how do we start people off on the right foot, so that they're not, starting they're not getting injured on their first one, or they're not starting with the wrong foundation or the wrong fundamentals. Like right now we're more honing in on improving the fundamentals and taking them to the professional ranks from maybe the amateur ranks, or maybe they're fresh out of college, and then turning them into permit holder of the year, rookie of the year. Like that's our main goal right now, but eventually we do want to get to the point where we can do this on a broader basis, and give people the tools that they need to get started in the sport.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited about it. So transition into the nutrition because I want to talk to you about that. This is the wildest thing that I think I've ever been a part of. Is going down the road and seeing the nutrition of some of these
Hmm.
athletes. Like it literally cracks me up sometimes. And you have guys that are super disciplined. Um, who was it? Dang it. Shane Proctor there for a while. He had like his backpack full of, all of his, different meals each day to
Hmm.
guys that, you know, won't even eat hardly at all during the day.
Yep.
And then they go riding. I'm like, I have no idea how you didn't like they don't eat breakfast, they don't eat lunch unless you're just sitting there. I'm like, I don't get how you do that. So what has been your experience on that side?
Man, it's all over the place. So the the status of most rodeo athletes' nutrition, I would just call subpar.
That's a good.
But
That's actually
that's
a benefit. I think. I think you're
yeah,
giving everybody the benefit of
yeah.
the doubt.
But in this day and age, like you could say that for just the American diet in general.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of I, I don't want to say there's a lack of education. There's an abundance of bad information, and I think that's the biggest thing. Um, the lack of education, obviously leads a lot of Americans into like the obesity epidemic. Obesity within rodeo is obviously not necessarily a problem so much because, we are trying to at least maintain some level of fitness and some type of body type to help us perform. Um, but then that leads us to the other side of the spectrum where we fall into the abundance of misinformation and bad information. Um, and so, ultimately, like nutrition, it's really, really, really simple. But with the food that's available and the things that are on the market and, these hyper palatable foods that taste really good, but are not very good for us, um, we get lost in the weeds because we try to, do all these other maybe different things, or, I read this on Instagram. I needed to start doing this, or I need to start intermittent fasting, or I needed to go carnivore. And it's like, none of those things are good for athletic development. And so, when it comes down to it, we this is one area that we can look at other sports and we can probably copy it, like just point blank. Like, what does another power type athlete need to eat to maintain his level of fitness and perform at his best? Well, that's what we do. I mean, we express power in a short burst, setting. So we can probably eat exactly like they do. And so it's one of those things it's hard to navigate on your own. Um, and it's easy to get lost in the weeds. It's simpler than you might think. It's just hard to stick to. Like
Yeah,
that kind
I,
of simple.
yeah, and I
It's
think too,
difficult.
like my diet is made up of like I don't know, 10 things maybe. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not very many things.
Yep.
I mean, uh, and but at the same time on the road, now there's some challenges there. Now with the van,
Hmm.
now all of a sudden those challenges get mitigated a little bit because
Right.
I can put a cooler in here. I mean, I can put a mini fridge in here. I can, bring a grill with me,
Hmm.
take a microwave. So, there are different things in which you can mitigate it on the road. Heck, they even make those Instapots. I don't know if
Yep.
you've great if you're taking some, if you can keep something cool. But uh I think there's only a few things that you really need, but I think on the road the challenge too is like you're saying is like you go in there to eat healthy, say you're going into a gas station. You're going to eat healthy. Well, instead of grabbing that banana, you're like, you know what? This protein bar is healthy.
It's easy to get distracted.
And like, oh, and I'm just going to drink you know, I'm going to drink a chocolate milk, or
Hmm.
some of these things aren't bad, but like it can become easily. I think on the road, it can become easy to make your diet become highly processed,
Hmm.
really highly processed.
Hmm.
Where you're not getting the whole food, you're not getting the fruit and the good carbs that you need and the good sources of protein.
Hmm. And so like when making choices on the road, and especially like if you don't have a van or a Capri camper, or an RV or something that you can prep food in, if you are strictly shopping for food when you're on the road, your best friend at a truck stop or a gas station is going to be that cooler section. And it's usually hidden away in the back. There's no fancy signs on it. There's no colorful labels stuff in there. There's going to be the yogurt parfaits. There's going to be the hard boiled eggs. There's going to maybe be a sandwich. There's going to be like little vegetable or fruit packs or cheese sticks or something like that. And that's going to be your best friend when you're strictly shopping for food. Other good options, like more on the process side, and I'll get to that in a second, are going to be obviously your protein bars, your those Fairlife milkshakes are top tier when it comes to grabbing a quick source of protein. um and so those options are also good. We just don't want to exclusively eat protein bars and protein shakes. When you are in the heat of the season, like let's say you're pro rodeoing, again, like PBR is a little bit more lenient because you usually have several days between events, um, where you can, make a home base or go home or something. But when you're rodeoing and you've got 5 events in 7 days and you're strictly on the road, um, when it comes to the big rocks that we need to focus on in nutrition, it's calories first. So whether food is necessarily processed or not, I really don't care because you just need to eat. And so there's a time that's when you need to do you need to have some forethought and some planning. When you are home, you need to try to stick to strictly whole foods as much as you possibly can, because you know there's going to be those times where whole foods are just not going to happen. And so on during those times when it's really tough to get whole foods in, you got to get your calories in, and you've got to stick to a good macronutrient profile that's going to um, it's going to advocate for better performance. So, like eating one protein bar a day and not eating anything else, like, okay, you just got 200 calories in your entire body and you burn 2,300 throughout the day. Like, that's not a good system. Like, your body's breaking down at that point. Like, don't do
Yeah,
that. You
right.
need to eat. Um, but there's also some superstition and different things on game day that different people have, and so some people don't like to eat, and something that I found that personally worked best for me was on game day eating an enormous breakfast, because I didn't like to eat too close to
Same.
competition time. So I had to eat a huge breakfast because I knew I wasn't going to eat lunch. And then when I did get closer to competition, I needed a quick source of carbohydrates to make sure that I had the fuel ready to be used when I do nod my head. So something like that would look like, maybe a banana or an apple. Um, we want about our body weight in calories as a pre-ride snack. So say you weigh 170 pounds, you need about 170 calories within an hour before you ride, just to make sure that we've got the fuel present to be able to perform.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I generally can do a late lunch too, so I can get breakfast, lunch in. Um,
Hmm.
Generally I try to get late a little bit later lunch in to where that gap's closed a little bit more from the time I eat my last meal until I, get my energy beforehand, because that's
Hmm.
not a lot. You're looking at what, an apple and a half, two apples.
Hmm. Yeah, one large banana would be about, 180 to
Yeah,
200
a
calories.
large
So it's like,
banana. I mean, a protein bar if that's what you have.
mhm,
But really, you want the carbs more than anything.
right.
You really want carbs that are going to be fast, fast carbs that you can get
Hmm.
that energy quick.
Yep. Yeah, the simplest form of sugar, like the closest form to nature as possible. And that's why like fruit is obviously a great option, because your body's gonna use
I,
that up.
every time before I work out, I'm eating fruit. Actually, I'm eating
Hmm.
fruit before and after. It's
Hmm.
really the only time I eat fruit is before and after I work out, but I do
Yep.
it religiously, consistently. And I like to eat rice a lot too. That helps to give me some
Hmm. Yeah.
white rice.
And I'm usually pretty careful to recommend things like this on a blanket statement, but in crisis situation, you need to eat something. You don't have fruit. Fruit's not available.
Oreos.
Something, yeah, yeah, something like gummy bears, like those
Gummy,
foods
gummy,
that like
yeah, yeah.
those foods that you would normally avoid, like those simple sugars that you would normally avoid in candy, like those are probably going to be your best friend.
I was just watching I forget what their names are, but they served in the military and they were like doing this thing like if you had to get to your house, everything was getting ready to go nuts. You had $30, you could go into Walmart and like that's what you had to get home. And
Hmm.
every single one of them got like gummy bears or something like that. There's a reason why they did that. That wasn't just because they love gummy bears, although they probably did.
Hmm.
But it's fascinating
Yeah.
when you get into that. But when you were saying calories, I told this on I don't know which one, but with Logan. So like especially for me, I have to eat a lot of calories if I'm putting on weight, which right now I'm currently still. I kind of backed off because I bulked up initially when I had surgery just to
Hmm.
get my body just freaking with all of this on it to where it can heal better, and then I cut back down to a certain degree, and now it's more like getting ready for competition weight, but I'm still
Hmm.
not quite to where I'm going to get maintenance. I still want to put on a few pounds because I'm about 162 and I've started kind of plateauing, so I'm upping my calories some more.
Hmm.
But beforehand I was on 4,200 calories,
Oh
and
wow.
if I want to put on weight, like if I were to
Yeah.
continue this route, by the time I got to 170 pounds, if I wanted to put on weight, I would have to be on 4,000, 4,200.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just because I'm
You
a
you and
tall,
Logan fall into that same category.
like it's
That hard
body
gainer.
types, it's just hard. Like
Yeah.
I just have to eat so much freaking food.
Yeah.
But so I was down like um I was down a ton of calories. I still needed like, I don't know, it was like 2,500 calories I needed. And so I went into the pantry and there was two family size packs of Oreos in there. And so I ate a half of one of those, which was like 2,500 calories. So I met the goal. But the
Yeah.
problem was, and in the next few days, I just made sure I didn't meet my goal. And then, oh, I need the calories because they're important. So I ate
Yeah.
two family size pack of Oreos in like 2 days, and then got in trouble because my wife's like, "That was for your son's birthday." And but yeah, I think you probably run into that too, as much on the road and stuff with guys as they just don't want to eat. And it's, I think probably that's the first step is just getting people to eat.
Hmm.
Then getting them to be disciplined enough to, hey, don't get into that bind. Find a
Yep.
way if you can, because again, you're not going to. On the road, you're still on the road. It's still, there's obstacles that you're probably not going to be able to overcome, but you can mitigate that in a great deal by
Yeah.
planning ahead.
Yeah,
And
when you're on the road, just the sheer volume of food that you would have to eat through Whole Foods is just not going to be sustainable if you're having to drive and sleep and like you got, other things that you got to take care of. You got to do laundry at the laundromat and you got to get to the rodeo and get checked in and everything. Like there's just not enough time in the day to plan out the amount of food that you would have to get in through Whole Foods, and that's where like and like I said, that's a very small portion of the season. That might last a month, it might last 2 months, depending on your schedule. But then when you are back at home or you have more downtime, like you do need to try to control for quality a little bit better.
I think for, like you said, the dynamics of like the PBR, it's much easier. So if
Hmm.
maybe a 3 day thing, it's easier to plan, 3 days than if you're on a rodeo run. Or if it's just a summer run during the PBR and you're freaking just going hard, although that's going to change now with the teams and all that.
Hmm.
But like you said, if you're going for a month, then it changes a lot when you look into the nutrition part of it. But I think for the most part too, from what I've noticed just around my buddies and everything, like at home, the nutrition's not on point. So if it's not on the point at home, it's not going to be on the road. And then if it's on point during the week, for me, I'd notice like if I go eat, you know, bad food for me, my body tells me, and I don't
Hmm.
want it's miserable. Like if I go off of my diet very far, like my body's gonna be like, you idiot, what did you just put into your body? Like,
Yeah.
so, I think that when you get into that, nutritious routine during the week, it's much easier to maintain it on the weekend because you start seeing the reverse effects when you don't.
Yep. Yeah. Once you start feeling good, you are enlightened to how bad you do feel when you step out on your diet and, grab fast food or whatever, or, maybe, um, yeah, I mean, I don't eat fast food very often, but when I do, like, I know it. Like, I'm feeling it for a while.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually a great entry point into mobility and stretching and all of that. That's one of the things that I do every single night, an hour before my bedtime. I'm on the floor. I'm doing I'm doing stretches, I'm doing mobility every single day.
Hmm.
Just once you start feeling like you feel when you actually start to have some mobility in your body and your muscles aren't tight, then you can tell when your muscles get tight and you don't like it. It's uncomfortable.
Hmm.
But when your body's just so used to being just tight all the time, you don't even realize it. It's almost like eyesight where it's just you get so used to having bad eyesight, you don't even realize you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And you talked about when you do it too, like before bed. So that's actually a really great time to do like static stretching and stuff because it's sending a signal to your body that it is time to rest and relax, and it'll help your sleep hygiene. It gets you in a mode to get better quality sleep.
Not
And if you
before you
start doing that regularly, you will notice that your sleep quality does improve and you'll be more recovered for the next day.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons I really focused on that at night was just because I sleep better.
Hmm.
I sleep better when I do that. But like before you ride and stuff, that's the opposite. That's not great for you.
Right, right. Yeah, before you ride, you're wanting to do more dynamic mobility exercise or dynamic warm up. So that would look like moving through full ranges of motion, like with I don't want to say speed. Speed wouldn't be the right answer there. You do want to get faster as you get closer to game time. So like your warm up should kind of like start off a little bit slower and then improve in speed as you get closer, just to get your heart rate up and get ready to perform. But that's what another one of the big things is what we see with rodeo guys, and it's because we didn't know any better. Like I mean, I was the same way. Like you throw your leg up on the panel, you do some groin stretches, you get down in that deep side lunge, you hold it for a few seconds on each side. You maybe grab the panel and do like a pec stretch, kind of open up your shoulders and stuff, and like it feels good, but ultimately, like it's not helping your performance in any way. Which we've been behind other sports. Like other sports have known that for a long time. I don't want to say a long time. It hasn't been near as long as like what you might think, um, but that can actually, by doing holding long static stretches before you get on, can actually increase your risk of injury, not prevent it. And so you need to be warming up and activating and mobilizing the muscles that you are going to use during your ride in your pre-ride warm up. And so it should be done with more vigor and speed rather than trying to hold a static stretch and that just is telling your body it needs to relax.
I like to think of it like if you're starting a fire and you're using one of those fire starters and you're kind of just,
Hmm.
you know, you're you're um you're just you're lighting that fire just a little bit,
Yep.
getting muscles engaged and firing. So if
Hmm.
you think of it like that, just getting your body firing and each part of your body, especially the parts you're going to be using,
Hmm.
just getting those firing and getting your heart rate up and your body just being accustomed to moving.
Hmm.
You see a lot too before I'm not sure in rodeo. You probably see it a lot, maybe even more in rodeo, where guys are just sitting around and they're just watching,
Hmm.
or maybe traditionally, you're just sitting there, you're getting ready, but it's not. You're sitting on a bench. Guys in the PBR in the locker room, you're just sitting there, right?
Yep.
You go from just sitting there for an hour to now going and doing something highly intense, like
Yep.
very, very intense. And those things do not work well together.
Yep.
Going cold to that doesn't work well.
Yeah, well, we talked about at the beginning of this, like my idea of like everything kind of starts at the hips, and one of the most common injuries we see are from the hips, and groin injuries fall into that category. People might not think of it, but a groin injury is a hip injury, and so when we see groin injuries, or I'm sorry, hip injuries in general are so common, torn labrums, the groin tears. The list kind of it goes on and on. Those are the two big ones, but there's many, many more that we see pretty frequently.
Back
And we
injury,
want,
you're like
yeah,
so in
back injuries. Yep,
tightness in the front instead
yep,
of very
exactly. And that all stems from your hips. And so, you wonder why we see so many of those injuries is because we sit all day in the rig and we're in this seated position. We go to the rodeo, maybe stretch a little bit, maybe we don't, maybe we just sit there, and then we go ask our hips to do the most explosive thing on the planet. Like that's not going to work. That's like taking a rubber band and just like ripping it in half. And it's a recipe for injury is what it is. And that's how we've lived throughout the entire existence of rodeo.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it's been for the most part.
Mhm.
Uh, and luckily we've got out of the phase where it was just like, just get something to drink, to where that loosened your body up instead of firing
Mhm.
up your body. Let's just drink some alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah, you might feel better for a minute.
Yeah, right.
It will so that's a funny point there. That's a good point to bring up because like that I mean that was pretty common at least back in the day. It's a much less common than it is now. Or it's much less common now than it was. But that used to be very, very common and it still happens. But alcohol decreases your perceived exertion and your perceived pain. So it feels like you're not working as hard. It feels like you're not in pain, but those things like aren't actually true. So you might perform better in the moment, but you're going to pay a much higher price, later on. And I wouldn't even say perform better. Like that's not even a good way to put it because it does impair your visual perception and your balance and other
I
things. So
think
like
you
the
perform
benefits don't necessarily out.
psychologically. It's a
Yeah,
psychological deal.
yeah, and psychologically. So like the benefits don't necessarily outweigh the drawbacks in any way, shape, or form. So guys that are doing that, like, it might work a couple times. It's not going to work in the long run.
And the guys that I've seen that are really successful at it, and they're the few that,
Hmm.
and I've seen really successful at it, you need to get a better mental game because a lot of times those guys will stay on that because they ride really good like that.
Hmm.
But they don't when they come off of it, and that's a mental issue. That's not a
Yep.
physical. You're not riding better because you have the potential. You're actually not even reaching your potential. You
Hmm.
reach your potential if you get rid of that and start working on, the mental aspect of the game and developing your mind to be able to perform at the level that you potentially can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
man, we could be on here a long time. I want to have you on again because there's so much more to talk about. But
Yeah.
I've been wanting to have you on, and I'm really excited hearing about what you're doing with all of the biomechanics and then also the OPAs because
Hmm.
that's legit. If anybody here is listening and you are up and coming bull rider, you're not, these are the guys to go to. You
Hmm.
guys know your stuff. I watch all of your stuff. I have the app, and what you guys are doing really is going to transcend this game and push it forwards. And we really need that, especially now with everything's going on with the PBR and the PRSA is growing. More money is getting in the bull ride and the pro rodeo. This team series they're gonna need more bull riders because
Hmm.
there's not enough of them out there. They
Yep.
really, if they expand this, if they go any deeper, they're gonna find that there's not enough of them out there. So with what you guys are doing, hopefully, that next generation and moving forwards will actually start to regain more guys that want to do it too. So
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that, man. It oftentimes feels like we're fighting an uphill battle, but we're passionate about it, and we'll see it through. And no matter what the outcome is, we'll keep banging our heads against that wall if we have to.
like
So
Dakota always tells me, ain't no hill for a high stepper.
that's right. That's right.
What are your social media tags? How can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram primarily. It's at Coach Paul Lloyd. There's two L's in my last name, so P Coach and then Paul Lloyd. Um, and I have a TikTok with the same handle. I don't post on it very much. And then I'm on Facebook, but yeah, Instagram is probably the primary way to find out about us. And if you're interested in finding out more about our programs or OPA or anything, Champion Living Fitness is the website for that. championlivingfitness.com
And the app.
and the app. Yes.
That's just Living Fitness as well.
Yep. Yep. You can search that in any app store and you'll find her there.
Yeah, heck yeah, they have free content as well as, you know, uh, little training programs for specific disciplines where you
Hmm.
kind of get all of it. So yeah, heck yeah, guys, get a hold of them. Check out, support them. They're really helping this industry go forwards, and it's really difficult to do anything without the ability to do so. So by you supporting them, they have the ability to put in more time and more effort and really help grow this thing. So
Hmm.
thanks for being on. Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you later.